doing?
All right. Good, Robert. How are you?
Good. I'm good. A little nervous, but good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. It's it's a big deal. You know,
Yeah.
being an author is a big deal.
Yeah.
Um.
So I hear. Yeah.
welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
It's been a couple of years since
Yes.
we've met and been able to sit down together.
Yes, since before COVID.
Before COVID.
Yes.
2019.
Yeah.
Right before.
Yeah. Yeah. I came from Kenya, and then you invited me over to the Lighthouse Writers Group, and we had a book signing over there, and it was wonderful. I brought my whole family there, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad we get to have this opportunity again. And can I ask you a few questions?
Sure. Let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
So just jumping in, can you talk a little bit about your journey as a Kenyan author in America?
Okay. So before I answer that, maybe let me introduce myself a little.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, let me say something first. Okay, this is something I've never told anybody else, and I want the whole world to know this. I have never taken a writing class. I have never taken a creative writing class, but I wrote a book, and I sent it to the publishing company, and they loved it, and they published it. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because it's not because I want to brag or anything, but because I know there are people out there who are trying to write a book, and I just want them to know that it's possible. Anybody can write a book.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Now that I have that off my chest.
Yeah.
Okay. My writing journey. So I used to write as a kid, 13, 14-year-old child. I used to write silly short stories when I was in Kenya. And then when I became a teenager, I stopped writing. I started playing soccer. And then I played soccer, and I received a soccer scholarship to come to America. I came to America, I played soccer, and we traveled around this United States of America from Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas. By the way, I went to Oklahoma Christian University. We played soccer. And then in 2008, I was listening to Barack Obama for the first time. I saw him for the first time. And I remember I switched off the TV when I heard him talk. I've never heard anybody talk like he did. And he spoke about leading by the power of our example, and not the example of our power. Empathizing, putting ourselves in the shoes of a little boy on the other side of the oceans. Things like, while we breathe, we hope. Yeah. So I turned on the laptop and I just started typing, because I typed what he said first, and then I just started typing a whole bunch of other things, and I couldn't stop. Yeah. And that's kind of how I started working on this book at that time. Yeah, 2008, and I wrote every day. Sometimes it was a word, sometimes a sentence, sometimes a paragraph, and the days they turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, and then at the end of the year, I had 600 pages. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
This book is only 200 pages, but I wrote 600 pages. And then that's when I asked myself, hey, Rob, what have you been writing about? I went back, I read the whole thing, and I realized I'd just written the story of my life.
Okay.
Yeah. As at that point, I haven't taken a single writing class at all. Okay. So I tell myself, I want to write a book, but I already have 600 pages, So that's when I started doing my research. And then I Googled a bunch of things. I don't want to say too much, but that's when I started doing my research on how to write a book after that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But that never included a workshop or a class or a course of any kind. It was just your research that you were doing.
As of that time, after writing 600 pages, I hadn't taken a single workshop. I hadn't done a single research. I poured my heart into the pages, and I just wrote. And I poured everything that was in me into the 600 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I was like, okay, I need to write a book, but I don't know anything about writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I started Googling, and Colorado is a very good place to write. I discovered the Denver Critique Group. I joined them. We used to meet at Panera Bread once per week for 1 hour. These guys are awesome writers. And I'll bring my paper to them, I give it to them, and be like, look at that. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, no, you're good. You know? And then I joined the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers.
Yep.
And they had workshops. So they invite an author to a workshop at the library. And I'll go sit there, you know, and I'll just listen to the authors, and I'll be like, yeah. Then I'll go home, I change something on my writing too. Mm-hmm. And then I joined the Lighthouse Writers Group, and guess who I met? Damn! Yeah, so that was awesome. That was the first time I met you. You used to host the Friday 500.
That's right.
Yeah, so I came to a couple of those. But one of the most amazing things that you did was host, you took us on the hike and write.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Hike and write. So you hike for 20 minutes, and then we stop, we sit, and then you gave us a prompt.
That's right.
A writing prompt, and then we write. Yeah. So I learned so much from you guys at the Lighthouse. You know, I learned so much. And after that, the last thing I did to teach myself how to write a book was I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and I listened to audiobooks with a pen in my hand. You know, one of my favorite writers was John Hurt. You know, he's an American author. When John Hurt, when you listen to his audiobook, you listen with the pen. He says, morning burns into afternoon. Like, wow, morning burns. He says, the moon burns silver on earth. What is that? So he took a hard right. You know, he walked into the room. He doesn't say the man was angry. He says the man's face was hard. Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I went back and I polished those 600 pages all the way down to 200 pages. And then so was born Whisper in the Jungle.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is just fantastic.
Yeah.
So you polished it down to the 200 pages. At that moment, that's when you started sending it out? Let's talk a little bit about like the road to publication after those 200 pages. You know, you polished it down to 200 pages. What was that road like from that moment on? You know, was it a bumpy road? Was it smooth? What were your expectations, and what happened that you didn't expect?
So I was very naive about writing, and I was very naive about publishing too. So so it's the same thing. I Googled publishing, and I discovered that you cannot submit your manuscript directly to a publishing company. They don't accept unsolicited writing. That means that if they haven't asked for your manuscript, don't send it to them. Yeah. So I was told about literary agents. You know, like you have to go through an agent, and then this is bad. Okay, this is really bad. You have to send your what is it called? A critique? No. What is the letter called?
Oh, the query letter.
The query letter.
Yeah.
You send a query letter to an agent. He hasn't even looked at your manuscript yet. Based on the query letter, he decides whether he wants to look at your manuscript. It's a really bad system. You know, like, I can't write a letter. I can write fiction, but I can't write a letter. Okay, so I tried. I wrote a couple of, like maybe 5 query letters. I sent them to agents. 4 didn't reply, and I got 1 rejection. No, rejection hurts.
Yep.
Don't let anybody lie to you.
No.
It hurts. So I sat down. I was like, okay, how do I get my manuscript in front of somebody who can actually read it? Because I can't write a letter. So I started Googling Kenyan publishing companies, and I found a good side and a bad side. The good side is you can send the manuscript straight to the Kenyan publisher, and they will look at it. The bad part is Kenyan publishing companies, they focus on publishing books that only that are school related. that are in the school curriculum.
Mm.
You see that? So if your book is not in the school curriculum, it's, it's, it's not going to make money. They want the book that's going to, it's a business publishing company.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a business. So I submitted my manuscript to them, and I have no idea what happened. They accepted the book. So afterwards, I asked them, how did you guys accept my book? And they told me, this was what they told me. They told me they read the first page of my book. Boom.
Woo.
And they liked it.
Yes.
I was like, oh, thank you so much. And so that's how I broke into getting published.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole query letter and writing. Then sometimes they want a synopsis, and that's a whole other thing.
Oh my gosh.
And you could be the best fiction writer in the world and be the worst query letter or synopsis writer. They're two different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I even thought about asking somebody to write a letter
Yeah.
for me. It was just bad. The system is just bad. Yeah.
It's tough, but you found a way.
I
found a way.
Found a small way, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
So you sound so motivated. From the moment that you heard, President Obama's speech,
Okay.
and that just gave you this like reservoir of inspiration.
Absolutely.
This is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
But then like it can be years. And years went by.
Yes.
Right, from you just hitting the 600 pages, whittling down to 200, the research, the writing groups, finding the different writing communities. I mean, this is years of your life.
Yes.
What keeps you, or what kept you motivated during that time? Because I'm hearing like at the very beginning it was just this rush of energy from Barack Obama, but what kept your energy level high throughout this whole process?
So I can answer that briefly first. Inspiration, I believed in my own story. That was huge. So I came to America in 2002 on a soccer scholarship in Oklahoma. I arrived in Chicago. That was my point of entry. I've never seen so many white people in my life.
Yeah.
I was a little intimidated.
Yeah.
And then they spoke to me and they said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Robert." They said, "No, really, what's your real name?" I was like, "Robert." They said, "No, isn't Robert the name they gave to you when you came into the country?" I was like, "No, Robert was the name given to me by my mother." And then they said, "You speak English very well." So here I am in a position where I have to explain how Kenya was colonized by the British and how the British imposed English as a language in the country and also their culture in Kenya. For the first time in my life, my identity was questioned. For the first time in my life, my name was questioned. For the first time in my life, my language was questioned. Okay? If I'm an African, why do I have an English name? It's a huge question. Why are we still, as Africans, why are we still giving our children Western names? I struggled out with my daughter when my daughter was born. I was like, I'm not calling my daughter Brittany, or any, Jane. I struggle with that. But anyway, the book. That's where it originated from. That's where the inspiration came from. Whispers in the jungle. These are the whispers in the jungle. These are the questions that a post-colonial young man asked himself every day. If I'm an African, why do I have an English name? If I'm an African, why do I speak English better than I speak my mother tongue? What really defines me as an African? Is it the clothes I wear? Is it the food I eat? I eat at McDonald's. Is it the continent I reside in? I live in America. What really defines me as an African? So this inspiration pushed me as I tried to to narrow the book down from 600 pages to a complete manuscript, you know, and it pushed me towards that, and that was the inspiration. Yeah,
it's a great reservoir of inspiration and energy.
And you don't
to
even
tell your story.
You don't even know you have it until you start writing.
Yeah, that's right. I love that.
Yeah,
love that answer. This question kind of switches it up a little bit, but what does it feel like to go to book signings, to talk about your book, to hear what readers of A Whisper in the Jungle say about your novel?
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
Okay, so my personality, there's two personalities. As a writer, I'm an introvert. Okay, so I stay in the room, I write. I love that. You know, that's how I get re-energized. As a soccer player, I'm an extrovert. I'm playing soccer out there with everybody. I love it too. So I got two personalities. So when I was writing the book, I was alone. Now you've published the book. Now you got to go out there and tell people about your book. It's hard, you know. It's really hard because you're standing in front of people. You're like, oh man, how are they gonna think about me? You know. Yeah. But it's very rewarding when somebody walks up to you and says, your book reminds me of Wakanda. It's like, it's a huge compliment right there. I was like, it's very rewarding. Yeah. So when I'm out there in book signing, I'm a little tense, but when I go back home and I think about the stuff that happened, I just enjoy it. I'm like, it was good what they said about the book, that the people are actually enjoying the book, you know. And in the book, one of the things I really emphasized on is that all these questions we have as a post-colonial generation, these questions about our identity. We grew up watching TV, you know, while our parents they diligently try to teach us African ways and traditions. We learn a whole lot more just from watching TV. So the post-colonial identity of an African is really fading right now. You know, all these questions. Yeah, I think I just lost myself. Yeah, but yeah, let's go on. I think I just lost my point.
That's all good.
Yeah.
So here's kind of an odd question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you could go back in time, and talk to your younger self, what would you want that younger version of you to know about writing and publishing a novel?
I think I'll tell him, I was writing when I was 12, 13 years old, and then I stopped when I started playing soccer. I would tell my younger self to never stop. I should have just kept writing, you know. And then there was this image that we had of what an author looks like, you know. We thought that an author should be like somebody old, you know, intelligent with reading glasses. That was the image we had of an author. Nowadays, we have 19-year-olds who have published books. We have very young people. So if I was to go back, I would tell my younger self, you should have kept writing. You should have never stopped. And this is something, if anybody is listening out there, that I would want them to know. If you're writing a book, stop saying you're going to write a book. Just write. Because the story that you want to tell is inside you. It's not everybody thinks that you have to create this great imaginable story from out there. The story you want to tell is inside you. You just pour your heart, just write. That's your story, you know, just write. Yeah, don't wait. You don't have to take a writing class. You don't have to go to a writing school. Just write. Everything else, don't even worry about whether your book is going to get published. Just write. And then everything else is going to follow afterwards.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, one of the things that happens when you publish and you become an author is audience gets created, you know, and one of the things that's I always just kind of fascinates me about the industry, the publishing industry, is that the publishers, you know, they have the marketing team and they have, you know, and depending on their budget, that could be huge or it could be medium or small, you know. and but they want like you said earlier to sell as many copies as they want or as they can because then they can publish more books and etc. So when A Whisper in the Jungle was published, an audience kind of has now followed it. And what's that experience been like? And now kind of seeing that, oh, there are there are people reading reading A Whisper in the Jungle. Has there been any surprises on like because as authors it's always like my audience is gonna look like this.
Yeah.
They're gonna be this type of person, this age, they're going to be from here, thinking about this or whatever. But then you publish, and that audience can be completely different. So what's that been like? Your audience?
Oh, I don't think I've had many surprises as far as audiences are concerned. I guess the surprise was when the book got published. And then we did all the book signings. We did one in Kenya and one in Colorado at the Lighthouse and a few others. And then COVID came. I think that was the biggest surprise right there. Yeah. So we sat down and we had to ask ourselves, what are we going to do now? We can't do book tours. We can sell books. I had no plan whatsoever. And then the days turned into months, and then finally, I hired a marketing manager in Kenya, and we started going to the schools in Kenya, looking at their libraries. So in partnership with Textbook Center, which is the biggest bookstore in Kenya, we started visiting the schools in Kenya, looking at their libraries, and we discovered that they don't have a lot of books. So we allocated a budget of around $500 per school, and we bought a bunch of books, reading books by African authors. We also included Whisper in the Jungle there too, and we were able to hit a few schools like Isili High School, Queen's High School. One of the best things that happened during the COVID time, my son's dentist, he wrote me a check, and I was able to start, in partnership with Textbook Center, was able to start a library in my village, which was huge.
Yeah.
Huge. This is completely something that you never planned for or expected. And so the library was founded by Dr. Brendan, and that was in 2020. And then in 2021, and then this year also, he wrote another check to grow the library in my village, which is huge. This is something you don't plan for, As far as surprises, I get people who come over to me and tell me how they love my book. I get a lot of Americans who love my book.
Yeah.
And it's mostly the wives of the people I give the book to. Isn't that funny? Like I give the book to Dan, and then Dan's wife is the one who comes and tells me, "Oh, I love your book." Or Dan's wife says, "Hey, I want to see Robert. Yeah, I enjoyed his book a lot."
Nice.
I'm like, "Oh, did you really, Dan?"
Yeah.
So those are nice surprises.
By the way.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so speaking of COVID and kind of like how the last 2 years has been this gigantic disruption of normalcy, however, you've won along the way, like coming back to, the library opportunities in your village and all of that, like being a pleasant surprise. So that is awesome. But now that COVID seems to be shifting again and shifting for the better in a lot of places.
Yes, absolutely.
What new goal do you have? Do you have is it now you want to make up for lost time with trying to get A Whisper of the Jungle in the jungle out there in a way that you had planned on the last 2 years but couldn't? Is it the new book? Is it something else? What's kind of like your major goal now these days?
Well, so after COVID, so I mean, COVID hit almost every artist. We're talking about painters and everybody and musicians. So the whole lockdown at home, I took that time to continue to write a sequel for Whisper in the Jungle.
Okay.
And I was able to complete it. But when I completed the book, there was still COVID. So I kept it aside, on the shelf. So what do I do now? We kept pushing with the libraries and everything, and
For A Whisper in the Jungle, you mean?
yeah. So we kept pushing the book Whisper in the Jungle to the various libraries, but we just didn't give them Whisper in the Jungle. We gave the kids other books that will help them to grow in their reading culture. But in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to Kenya.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to be attempting to break the world record for the biggest book signing ever held by an African author in Africa, in Kenya. So
wow.
Yeah, it's gonna be insane because I have to sign 1,260 books in one sitting. I have no idea how I'm gonna do that. My fingers are gonna be hurting. I don't know if I'm gonna get a restroom break or anything like that, or a lunch break.
Yeah.
That's gonna be crazy. Yeah, but one of the reasons why I'm doing this is to encourage a reading culture in Kenya, especially now in the time of a lot of gadgets and cell phones and video games and all that. Back in our days when we were kids, we didn't have that. I read a lot of Enid Blyton, Famous Five, what is it called? Franklin Dixon, Hardy Boys, a lot of Nancy Drews, a lot of Tom Sawyers and Oliver Twist when I was that age. And you just sit under the tree and you read, and these books, they take you to worlds, oceans away. They transport you, yeah. So that's what I want to do. In 3 weeks' time, I'm going to Kenya. And that's my new goal right now, is to inspire the new kids, the next generation of kids, to pick up a book and read.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that, and thank you for devoting the time to that goal, because that's going to be that it's things like that can change someone's life.
Yes.
Because it might not be every kid who has the destiny to have literature be a part of their lives, but there's gonna be some where that's their moment, when it starts.
Yes.
And if you didn't have that goal and made that intention and that commitment to do that, they may or may not get that later down the road.
No.
But they will with you there.
With me, yeah.
Sure.
The same thing Barack Obama did for me. Barack Obama never wrote a check for 1 million for me, but just seeing him and just listening to him, I wrote a book. I've never met it, I wrote a book. I was inspired just by him. So I hope to do the same for a kid. Yeah. When he sees me there, he's like, he did it. I can do it too. Yeah.
That was the moment. Yeah, absolutely. So this goes perfectly into my next question, and it's about community. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about your community? How have they lifted you up during this process? How have they supported you? And you've already kind of touched on what you want to give back.
Yes.
But if you just talk a little bit more about what community means to you as your journey continues.
I mean, community is huge. I love my community. I couldn't do it without my community. I couldn't be here without my community. When I flew to Kenya to do the book launch, they showed up for me. My friends, my family, all the children from SOS Children's Village, all my brothers and sisters, stepbrothers, stepsisters, everybody showed up for the book launch. And it was amazing. It was successful because they showed up. When I came back to Colorado, I did a book launch at the Smoky Hills Library, and the Kenyan community in Colorado was there to back me up. They were there. I was like, oh man, people showed up. This is awesome, you know. Yes, so they mean a lot to me. Without them, I wouldn't have a book launch. You know, without them, I wouldn't be. Right now, we have raised a lot of donations to buy kids books in Kenya. Uh, Thank you, Dan, for that. Ah,
I gotcha.
yeah, thank you for that. And a lot of the community, people in the community also donated money, and some of them was $10, some of them was a lot more money, and all this money is gonna go help these kids in Kenya, because the poverty level in Kenya is such that it's very hard for a kid to afford 3 meals a day. Uh, it's very hard for a kid to afford books to go to school. So now you're talking about a kid uh, buying a novel to read. Where's that money gonna come from? So it's really hard. So every donation of a book, novel, it helps. And these kids, we gave them Whisper in the Jungle. I took them to the soccer program where I grew up in. These kids, I gave each kid a book. It was like almost 50 books, and I know in my heart, because I was one of those kids, I'll treasure that book with all my heart, because it's probably the only book or the only novel that I have. I was one of them, so I know for sure. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. Yeah. I think the power of community. You know, because we're so alone most of the time. You know, when we create, we're alone. That's just the beginning, middle, and end of it. You know, and then to be able to, but you're not alone also at the same time. Because you are feeling the support constantly of the sacrifice that it takes, because it takes so much time. You know, time is a sacrifice to write a book. You can't do it in one sitting or in two sittings. You know, like other art forms. You know, it takes a long time. So to have a community is absolutely necessary.
It's huge. In Africa, a child is brought up by a village, and now we go to a post-colonial period in time where communities are breaking up into individualism, and it's really hard for the African child to be alone, because we're not used to that. You know, the community is everything to us. Yeah.
I see. So I think one more question. Sound good?
Yay! Let's do it.
And you've already, you know, this has kind of been the theme that you brought from the very beginning throughout the interview. But now's your chance to dig in.
Let's dig in.
What do you want to tell young people who might also want to become a novelist?
Okay.
If you could speak directly to some of these potential writers and authors, young people who might be thinking about it, but they're not sure, what would you like to say to them?
What do I tell the young people? I think maybe I should make it simple. If you want to write a book, write a book. You know, don't think if you're good. Don't think whether you're good enough or anything like that. Just write. Pour your heart into the pages. Tell your story. You know, and when you write a book, it's not gonna make you money. You know, at least not initially. So you may have a job, or you may have something else you're doing. Don't stop doing that. Go to work. You know, but when you come from work, write. You know, if you're a musician, if you go to work, you come home, you play music. You know, don't give up on your passion. You know, don't give up on your passion for anything just because it doesn't pay your bills. You know, it's huge. Your passion is the real you. That's who you are. You gotta keep doing that which makes you happy. And Marianne Williamson tells us that in her book A Return to Love, we are to do only that which is deeply and psychologically imperative for us to do. Do something because it makes you happy, not because of the money it makes you. And that's huge. And you probably also know this, having been working for a long time. You go to work and you don't like a job, and you know, but your passion, that will always be with you. That's the real you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderfully said. Yeah. thank you so much for your good work, Robert.
Thank you, Dan, so much.
Yeah, and for
Yeah.
this opportunity to connect with you again.
You have been a big part of my writing journey.
Well,
Yeah, I appreciate you for that.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so much.
yeah. Let's do this again.
Let's do it
Okay.
for the sequel.
For the sequel.
Yeah.
Yes, for the sequel. I like that. Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right. Thank you.